Good morning. Wow. Welcome to our Wednesday morning class, and I want to welcome you that are here, and also to you that are joining us on the internet this morning, and you that will join us later. We want to welcome you today. I'd like to start out with my wakening bell. Again, this is a reminder to our mind that we have so much potential we have not activated in ourselves. And we use this frequency of this bell to begin to awaken and activate our human potential. So just feel, not only listen and hear the sound, but feel the waves of the sound. They're called sound waves, and they'll kind of be like a wave in the ocean of possibility. One more time. Right. A lot of people believe in the kind of work and training that we do with sound using tuning forks, but it could be bowls, it could be anything, that the brain thinks that the louder something is, the more powerful it is. And it's really the opposite in energy work. You'll find out that actually the louder a sound is, the further it is from its source. So let me give you an example of that. If you have an ocean or a body of water and the wind comes along and lifts that parts of that ocean up into individual waves, and the wave that is the tallest wave is the furthest from the ocean, right? So as the wave returns back and gets closer, the more it is connected to the source in which it came out of. And one thing that we teach in Soul Energetics is the fact that silence is the most perfect universal sound. Silence. Now, we never think of silence as being a sound, but it actually is a universal sound. Most people that I've asked about what is the most universal sound will tell me it's the Om. No, it is the most primordial sound. There's a difference in the primordial sound, which means it's the first primordial sound that the ears hear when the silence is activated. So when a sound diminishes, it's coming back closer to the silence from which it came. And that sometimes is the most powerful place of sound, is in the closest to the silence. Not out here in the loudness, but in the diminishing of it, returning back to the source from which it came back. And I say that because when I first started doing tuning forks, I noticed how people just wanted to keep hitting the tuning fork, keeping it loud, because the brain says, I can't hear it. And we had to teach people how to be intuitive, to let that tuning fork and that sound go back into a more diminished sound, and that was okay. We didn't have to keep activating it. So I guess I'm saying all that to say to you that one of the most sacred places in consciousness is the place of stillness. It's called many things. It's called a still point. It's called 0 point. And of course, the most famous New Thought scripture for that is, be still and know I am God. So I guess Spirit wants me to encourage you to not be concerned about times of stillness. Times that you're trying to think up something all the time to keep the brain active. If that's not happening, go with the stillness. Just sit in the stillness and the quietness and be one with the universe. Be one with Source in that moment. All right, so we'll see where this is all leading us today. I realize this has been a challenge for all of us as we have moved out of more the abstract of spirituality into the more organic of spirituality. And what do I mean by that? The somatics of spirit. One of the things, and I've mentioned this so many times, is I think there is a great shift and healing from the old paradigm of the term body, mind, and spirit. Because when I say it that way, which I do say it that way because of the fact that we're still overlapped in the third dimension, that we tend to understand things more in a three-dimensional understanding. And the body, mind, spirit paradigm has been tremendously important for the last several decades. Most everybody has been very comfortable with the idea of the body, mind, spirit. And as I've shared with you, when I came into energy, that was a whole different way of looking at the body, mind, spirit. And realizing that if it is true, as the forefathers have said in quantum physics, that everything is energy. That was a whole different thing. The word is so important. It is, not has. There's a difference in what has something and what is something, right? And I've always thought of my body having an aura, having an energy field, having an electromagnetic field. I didn't realize it was an energy. I just thought it had a field. So this is a tremendously new mindset in which we are moving, I believe, from a more etheric, mystical point of view into a more spiritually organic point of view. In other words, we're healing the division between our physiology, our biology, and the unseen part of ourself called spirit. Actually, it's beginning to come together. It's beginning to come together. So this has been a challenge to do this because so many spiritual schools of thought is that, one, we're not our body, or we're in our body. And I'm sort of been challenged by that today. That, one, I am my body. Energetically, I am my body. I'm not just in my body because there is really no inner or outer in energy. So again, it's the breaking down of these walls, these divisions of separation. And separation has shown up even in the very outskirts of spiritual teachings, such as metaphysics, New Thought. And as important as it has been and still is to many people who are just coming into that kind of teaching, but to those who are growing up, I call it, growing up into a spiritually adultship, are being taught to see things a little differently than what we saw them in the third grade or the fourth grade or the fifth grade. You know, you hope that when you go through the grades in school that you're going to get a much better, deeper teaching than you got last year. You don't want the same thing in the sixth grade that you were taught just in the third grade. Now, that doesn't mean what you've been taught in the third grade doesn't follow you to the sixth grade and become your new foundation in which you build new truth. But you want to keep building. That's why we have grades in school. We go to grade school, we go to middle school, we go to high school, we go to college, because each thing is taking us deeper and deeper and preparing us to receive a more deeper knowledge of something. And of course, as we do that, it begins to oftentimes rearrange what we were taught into a new pattern of thinking. Well, it's the same way in the school that we call the spiritual school, God school. There's grades. There's grades. There's a place in Scripture that says that God will change us from glory to glory to glory. In other words, glory is a certain level of understanding, but He changes us to a greater glory of that deeper understanding. So it is very much taught, I believe, in spiritual that it's about growth. It's about growth. It's about growth. It's about graduation. It's about tests. It's about learning. It's about cramming. Sometimes we have to cram at the last minute because we know that a test is coming up and maybe we didn't quite listen to that subject in class when we should have, and now the test is coming up, so now we got to cram and learn it. So this is intense times in which we are really preparing for, I think, the great test for graduation. What do I mean graduation? Graduating from this third dimensional Homo sapien, adult human state into a co-creative adult spiritual state. And what that's preparing us for is what I call responsibility. Responsibility. And if you're going to be given responsibility, how to co-create with Creator, you want to know what you're doing. You don't want to just be doing it. You want to be prepared. You want to have learned the lessons that you've been given. You want to be prepared to be at that level to meet the challenges that show up as you graduate into a different level. So I think that's what this Wednesday class is kind of about. And I've been kind of asking myself, what's going on here? I'm not even sure. I've just kind of let Spirit lead this and guide this, and I'm kind of just flowing with everybody else, trying to really understand what's going on here. The fact that I felt so important for us to deal with, in this case, the endocrine system. Most people's going to say the first thing off their heads, I'm not interested in the endocrine system. But I hope that you will understand how important it is from a metaphysical point of view. So let's kind of just start here and see where it takes us. I don't mind to keep reviewing a little bit because we're making those steps forward. So the endocrine system is a system for looking into more metaphysical and philosophical viewpoints that connects us to what we call the gestation period. Now, we understand physical conception. We understand the 9, 10, 7 months, whatever, of gestation, and we understand the birth of the physical body. But anything that happens in that outer realm of matter has happened in the world of antimatter. So what we're trying to understand here is everything that is shown up in the physical is come from a more abstract dimension of things. In other words, before there was a physical conception between two people that mixed their data, their information, their chromosomes together, that was only a manifestation of something that had already happened in the spiritual or abstract dimension. And we're trying to go back to understand how that we participated in this, that we're not victims to our birth. We are not victims to the families that we were born in. We're not victims to the gender in which we have been incarnated in. That we're not victims to the sexual orientation in which we've been born into. All of these different things that seem to divide us all, actually, if we could go back and trace them to the spiritual component of it, we might understand it more in the natural. But we're trying to understand it from a natural point of view. And that can't happen. Let me give you the scripture again. The natural man cannot receive the things of the natural for their foolishness. That's what it says. I'm going to say it again. The natural mind cannot receive things of the Spirit because they're foolish. Okay? So only that which of the Spirit can understand that which is of the Spirit. And when we find the understanding in the spiritual, and then allow the spiritual to come out of its abstract into the physical, organic level that we begin to truly have understanding. If you stop and think how many centuries, decades, ages that people has tried to figure out the mystery of physical life, human life, it's been amazing. We haven't figured it out yet. And it's in that lack of understanding why things are the way they are and how they've landed in the physical realm that the ego has set up its system that has brought forth its agenda of separating us. In other words, I'm saying that I think there will not be oneness into the world and understanding into the world until there is a communication that is originating from the spiritual realm. I think just coming together as bodies to try to understand bodies will never happen. I don't think people intellectually coming together to understand the intellectual thinking of how the brain thinks will never happen. I don't even think the spiritual religious point of people coming together trying to figure that out will never happen. We've got to come from this place that we call the spiritual realm, or I'm calling in this case the abstract area within us. So, what this has led us to in this part of the class is called the endocrine system, which is a part of this process that I'm talking about called gestation. What is that? It's about stepping down of energy through vibration into different manifestations of density. Everything is about how everything becomes in relationship with itself through vibration. So this is why vibration is making such a tremendous comeback right now in the world today, is because as we completed a cycle, we're coming back to begin with changing things by changing vibration. So vibration is going to play a great part in this transformational aspect of things. So again, it's the stepping down of energy through vibration into different manifestations of density and eventually ending up in the physical world. Now it's interesting to note that in the Greek, the role of the word endocrinology is derived from the words within, and this clearly portrays the fact that their secretions are of such power and strength that they maintain a specific equilibrium through the whole body. Now we talk a lot here about balance, we talk about the equilibrium, we talk about alignment, we talk about being centered. These are kind of buzzwords that is a lot used in kind of metaphysical, New Age, spiritual areas. But I wonder, do we know what we mean? What does it really mean if I say center yourself? Now, most of us are going to immediately probably think of going into the heart space. But what is in the heart? Why is the heart the center place that we think about going and centering ourselves? Where does that come from, is my question. So we have to understand the spiritual, abstract aspect of the heart before we can understand the physical heart and what it actually means as it has been made manifest into things. So the endocrine system is so important because it is the leader of the orchestra of the whole body. And that's especially the pituitary and the pineal gland. And that's the two things we've been talking about for the last 2, 3, 4 weeks are these two glands. We learned that the pineal gland is a very small, little, about a 1/4 inch gland in the midbrain. It's more in the center of the brain, and it's something that has been defunct for a long time. It's not been used in man. It was not seen to be important in man for centuries as it was at one time. And then in the last few decades, around the 60s, 70s, they begin to notice a reactivation of the pineal gland. And what that means is they begin to detect a vibration at the tip of the cone shape of the pineal gland on the tip of it begin to have activated and begin to come alive. And this was telling us that something big was coming. Something big was getting ready to come out of the abstract world, the spiritual world, into the physical world. And for that to happen, the pineal gland was going to play a big part in that. And as I've shared with you, I began to be interested in this in the 60s. It was actually around 70s. In 1976, if I remember correctly, that someone gave me a little cassette tape of someone talking about the pineal gland. Now, I never heard the pineal gland. I didn't find it interesting in my religious context to learn about the pineal gland whatsoever, but I had that inner witness. That's something that went beyond my intellect, beyond the boundaries of my belief systems, and I had this awakening or quickening in me about this pineal gland. It just felt fascinating to me, and I began to, as I've told you so many times, begin to be open to find information. There wasn't a lot of information in 1976 about the pineal gland as there is available to us today, but there was some, not a lot. And I was pastoring a church at that time that this all happened in East Texas. And if you know anything about East Texas, it's East Texas. Now, lovely group of people. They loved me. They treated me well. We had a nice little church there, but it was a very fundamentalist church that was very Bible-oriented only. And if you couldn't back it up with Scripture, it had no place there. And being the Sagittarian pioneer that I am, I got up and blurted out about this pineal gland thing, and they wanted to know where that came from and was offended even at the word pineal. And I don't want to tell you this again, but I just feel too. I didn't know what to do at that point because I wanted to know and be able to explore this. And a lot of the things that I research are through my own teaching. You know what I'm saying? I don't sometimes find a teacher to go to, but sometimes it comes through me, what's teaching me. I'm the student and the teacher all at the same time. And so I wanted that freedom to be able to explore this idea of the pineal gland. Now, the only thing I knew about the pineal gland was the size of it, where it was in the brain, and that it had some kind of crystallization to it. That was in it. That's all I knew. So at that time, I was in touch with something really profound. In those times, because I spent a lot of time in prayer, a lot of time in study. I had the time to do it, and I was therefore very available to hear Spirit at that time. So in kind of contemplating this, meditating it, whatever I did in those days, I just heard so clearly, go check out all the coniferous trees of the Old Testament. Now, there's nothing more boring in the Bible than trees and things like that in the Bible that mean absolutely nothing to you when you read them. But you'd be surprised how many trees are mentioned in the Old Testament. The fir tree, the evergreen tree, the box tree. All of these trees are coniferous. That means they're pine cone bearing. They're coniferous type trees. And so I started doing that and looking up every tree that was mentioned that was coniferous, and I had to kind of look that up and see which ones were. And then I took my Strong's Concordance and started looking up these trees in the Hebrew language. And it was fascinating because what was happening at that point was moving away from the literalism of the English version back into a more ancient sacred language, made it closer for Spirit to speak to me. Does that make sense to you? See, English is very far from the Spirit of truth. It's probably one of the furthest other than German, because these are languages of engineering and commerce, computers, left brain. These are left brain. But if you get into truly Hebrew, Aramaic, Sanskrit, and some of these ancient languages, you're going to see a much closer definition toward spiritual definitions. So I found that interesting, that the more I looked it up in Hebrew, the more that I got the spiritual application. I didn't know the word metaphysics. I called it spiritual application. Same thing. I got the spiritual meaning behind the symbol. And probably at that time I would have probably not liked the word metaphysical, because I thought that was some cult thing. I'm sure I'd been brainwashed to stay away from that word. But I got the spiritual meaning of it. So I was looking up words in Hebrew that was giving me the words like to be able to see inwardly, to consider, all kinds of things that had to do with another part of my mind, my brain, that I didn't know I had. A different way to see rather than through my eyes, but I could see through my mind. And it just opened a door that changed my life to this day. It really, really did. And so I was able to take that and minister that from the Bible, what these trees meant in the Hebrew language. And it was through that I absolutely found a way that would eventually lead me to much more understanding of the pineal gland. So the pineal gland is impregnated by eternal ideas and gives to man the possibility of formulating his own conceptions. Wow, that sentence is so powerful. You see, when the pineal gland is closed, the brain has to depend on everybody else outside of itself to give it knowledge. But when you open the pineal gland, you have a way to know for yourself. You don't have to download everybody else's beliefs and teachings of anything. You start having inner revelation. You start having your own inspiration, or what today we call the aha moments or the epiphanies of knowing from inside yourself. And that is the importance of the activation of the pineal gland. So let me read this again. The pineal gland is impregnated by eternal ideas. That means that information, logos, data, word, whatever you want to call it, comes into the brain from a higher dimension and impregnates the brain with these ideas. That's conception. Now, it's not the physical conception of a body, but it is conception. It's the conception of the Word that is ready to be made flesh. See, mostly now, flesh creates flesh. Bodies create bodies. That which is of the flesh is flesh. That which is of the spirit is spirit. In other words, it's totally separated. Spirit does not bring forth bodies, but bodies bring forth bodies. Am I right about that? Where do you think your body came from? Two other bodies. Who came from two other bodies? If you keep tracing bodies back, bodies come back from bodies. But let me tell you, there's been exceptions when people have jumped on this planet that did not come through physical conception. And these are the great avatars and the great teachers. And this is what is hidden in the story about Jesus, the Christ, coming onto the planet through unconventional ways. Now, don't forget the doctrine, what Christianity has done with that. But it's showing you that people at times show up on this planet without going through the dumbing down that one goes through to end up having to inhabit a body. but not become the body. The body says that Jesus was the Word, and the Word was made flesh. The essence of who Jesus was, the Christ, did not get stuck and imprisoned in a human body, but it became the body. When they came to Jesus, Yeshua, and said, you talk about the Father's in you, this is in you, that is in you. But Jesus said, but wait a minute, go ahead and touch me. That's in the Bible. Touch me, because what's in me has become me. Even my body is from spirit. Now, that's how they're born into the world, so they can teach us how to be born again. They're born directly out of the realm of spirit into the physical without going through the physical method of conception, gestation, and so on. So they just show up as an avatar. Okay? Then they say to us who are born of the flesh, you can be reborn. And this time it's not through the old method, but I'm going to show you a new way to be born again. And the way you're going to be born again is the way I was born the first time, without going through the physical method of the sperm and the egg. So there is something very powerful in this being born again thing. I know they've taken it and they think they own it in fundamental Christianity till you all run the other way when somebody knocks on your door and asks you if you're born again, because you know what they mean. But don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. We all want to be reborn of the Spirit. Reborn of the Spirit. I hope that makes some sense to you. I know that's a lot, but I think that's the whole idea of this idea that there's a different way of getting into the planet than through the sperm and the egg. And there has been those who have done that and been shown up, and these are the ones that we really see as the great teachers who have created new portals and new pathways for people to be reborn through. So the pineal gland is something that can be impregnated by eternal ideas, and then it gives to mankind possibilities of formulating one's own conceptions. If you remember, you that in the anti-aging classes, that's what we call self-knowledge. Self-knowledge. It is an organ of thought by means of which we learn to know, and thus to change eternal ideas into earthly concepts. Here lies the reason for Descartes, I never get his name right, it is so spelt so funny. Descartes, that it? Statement that the pineal gland is the seat of the human soul. The pineal gland points to the land of the spirit, right? Where the pituitary points to the land of the physical. So these two working together is able to make the divine ideas and thoughts become flesh into the world today. So the endocrine system is a system for looking into more metaphysical and philosophical points of view. Why would you want to study something that is keeping everything in balance? Because that is what the endocrine system does. We say God created us whole, that we are whole, magnificent children of the universe. What does that mean, that we are whole? Whole means that every part, everything is working together for a purpose beyond itself. An example would be to say, I have a healthy pancreas, but an unhealthy kidney. If you want to be whole and healthy body, then everything must work together, and that's why we call it the body orchestra. And the leader of that orchestra is the endocrine system, especially the pineal and pituitary glands, which work together. The fact that they both work with the male and female aspects of themselves, they are leaders that produces an androgynous state of the human body. So no longer are we just identified fully all male or all female by the physical body, but in this wholeness of things, we both all contain the balance of male and female. Then we talked about how that the Old Testament gave us a blueprint to understand our physical bodies. And 1 Corinthians 12 and 18, I really like. I think it's worth mentioning. It says, God engineered every individual part of the body according to the deliberate design, so that it could be made its dwelling place. Hebrews 8 and 5 says that everything about the tabernacle was according to a pattern. And Hebrews 8 and 5 says that we should build our physical bodies also according to that pattern that was shown to Moses on the mount, or high states of consciousness. So we talked about how that even in the material that I have, the word is used temple for the body, and how I challenge that. The physical body is not the temple. Just because it says the body is the temple, we assume it's talking about this physical body. But most people understand we have a spiritual body. So if the natural body cannot receive the things of the Spirit, would it make sense that the spiritual body receives the things of the Spirit? So everything that is spiritual has to be put into the spiritual body first, or the abstract. So you have to understand conception in the abstract. You have to understand gestation in the abstract. You have to understand the birth process in the abstract. Everything that is out here we're trying to understand. If you don't bring it back to the abstract, you will never understand the divine purpose for it. And everything has its purpose. So, the temple is different from the tabernacle. The temple is something that is stationary. You don't move temples around. Where a temple is built is where a temple is going to be. Right? There's not a temple that they tear down and go rebuild it somewhere else. It stays. The tabernacle was something that was portable. Because when the children of Israel was moving 40 years in the desert, they just took the tabernacle with them. And everywhere they ended up, they erected the tabernacle. It was a tent. It was a tent. And it was temporal. And, and it was a place where they met the presence of the God of Israel. The presence of the God of Israel dwelled in that tabernacle, in a very sacred place called the most holy place, the sacred place. So, even unity information says that the tabernacle is the temporal body of man. The tabernacle represents the temporal body, as the temple built by Solomon in Jerusalem represents the regenerated permanent body. So your permanent body is your temple, and that's where God the Spirit dwells. He lives in this temple. But the temple is in the tabernacle. In the wilderness of sense, when it talks about them walking around in 40 years in the wilderness, it's talking about the sensory. People just roam around in their five senses trying to figure everything out. And that whole 40 means, it's not literal, it means a time of whatever it takes to get you to wake up and to realize that you're going nowhere in the wilderness. That the thing you're looking for is not in the wilderness. The temple is not in the wilderness. You've got to come to the land where you can build the temple that is unmovable, and you've got to wake up in the wilderness to do that. So man worships God in a tent or temporary transitory state of mind, which makes it a perishable body. And it says, yet in this flimsy structure are all the furnishings of the great temple. Now, that's why the different organs in you are exactly that. They are the furnishings of the great temple that is going to be built. The outer structure was the cloth, the altar, the laver, the candlestick, the ark of the covenant. All of the inner utensils were of gold and silver and precious woods. What does that mean? It means that the central function of the body are enduring, and that it is the fleshly covering that is so perishable. When the Lord commanded the building of this temporary structure, there was a promise of a permanent one. Every one of you hold the promise someday of an eternal existence and body. The setting up of the temple means the establishing of a new state of consciousness. Man builds his own mind and character, but God furnishes the design. So we looked at some of these things. Last time we looked at gold. Gold. Now gold is not found as pure gold. Gold is sometimes what you call in the rough state, like diamonds are in the rough. But gold is sometimes not shiny and beautiful as you see it when you go buy a ring or you go buy a bracelet and it's all shiny. That's because of process. And most of that process comes by the heating of temperature. Fire. You see, fire will not burn the purity of anything out. It only burns the impurities out. So if there's any impurity in the gold and it's put in the fire, the impurities are burned until the gold is in its purest state. So gold always represents deity, the divine nature of mankind. And then it said, take the gold and overlay it with wood. That means the gold now is inside humanity. Wood is humanity. So in every one of you is the gold of God's nature and presence in these human bodies, these tabernacles, these temporal tabernacles. But in you is a pattern for a temple. I've said all my life there's got to be a better body than this. And I know people rave about the body, how great it is, how mysterious it is, and how wonderfully made it is, and I suppose it is. But it's way inferior to me than anything that could have been created by a perfect creator. Why would a perfect creator create anything imperfect to itself? Makes no sense to me. But there is a pattern to create a physical body that is at the level and frequency of the Creator. So you don't have created bodies. You look at my body, this is not a created body, it's a formed body, formed by two other bodies who formed this body. When you look at someone like what Jesus represents, you didn't see a formed body, you saw a body created out of the realm of the heavens. Literally, heaven became earth, and heaven wasn't in the earth, heaven became the earth. And if religion hadn't gotten in the way, he would have shown us this pattern of how to do this long ago. And this is why he said, you're not going to get this. I know that. My infinite mind tells me that you're not going to get what I'm about for at least a couple of days. 2 days, you're not going to get this. And the Bible is clear to say that 1 day is as 1,000 years. So Jesus said, after 2,000 years that I've been here, you're going to be still trying to figure it all out. You're going to try to fix this body. You're going to try to perfect this body. You're going to try to immortalize this body. You're going to spend all your efforts and your time trying to fix something rather than build it from a higher pattern that I've placed in you. So religion came along with a whole different message for 2,000 years. Now we're out of the 2,000 years and we're in the third day, right? Now we're moving into the third 1,000-year day. And he said, for 2 days you won't get this. For 2 days you're going to do a few miracles, a few healings, a few of this, that, and another. But on the third day, I'm going to raise you up. I'm going to raise your vibration. I'm going to raise your frequency. I'm going to raise everything that you ever thought you were into a higher dimension. And I'm going to resurrect you into the level where I showed you that you cannot destroy the body, where death cannot destroy the body, where disease cannot take over the body. All these things are gone. That'd be kind of like living in heaven, wouldn't it? Right here on earth. Huh? Live without arthritis, live without cancer, live without diabetes. Just think if you just took all those things out of the equation and you lived in eternal health and peace and joy and didn't have all these issues constantly. I mean, I don't know about you, the body is demanding all the time. I get worn out with it. Trying to keep it as healthy as possible. Running to the doctor to take care of this. Taking a supplement for that. Going through some kind of a technique for this. I mean, I wear myself out trying to stay here. And I'm tired of roaming around in this wilderness, this sensory wilderness. And it's time to go within and find the pattern that was shown in the high mountains of Christ consciousness. And when we do that, we're going to step in and we're going to teach ourselves how to restore themselves and rebuild themselves from a higher vibration and frequency. Why not? People say, that's the silliest thing I ever heard. That's never going to happen. That's crazy. Then you got limits on your faith. Take your limits off your faith and believe. 2 Corinthians 5. What a great scripture. I'm giving it to you. I'm giving it to you again because I think it's so powerful. Our body is the house, not the temple, the house, the tabernacle, the tent. The body is the house in which spirit lives on earth. Now listen to this. If that house is destroyed, God gives you another. Come on, use that one for your reincarnation friends and family. It's a great one. If the house is destroyed, God will just give you another tabernacle. Until you get one that is not made by man's hand, and it will last forever. That's why I think some of us, me, others, are feeling like we are stopping the reincarnation process. I'm tired of going from tabernacle to tabernacle, roaming around in the wilderness, talking about someday the promised land, the milk and honey is going to flow. It's all going to be great someday. And I think we should stop and begin to awaken and activate a new pattern of how the body can build itself. My time, it goes so fast. The pituitary gland that we've been talking about is what we're going to move on from next. And it is connected to the third chakra from the eye of enlightenment chakra. Yeah. Ajna chakra, Ajana or something like that. Ajna. And that, of course, is your ability to begin to really see, to intuit, to see beyond what the physical eyes see. And so I thought we would end today with a little exercise and meditation on activating our third eye. The eye is connected to the pituitary gland. The leader, right? And once we are led by how our spirit sees things rather than how our ego mind sees things, our sensory perception, we can change our complete path, and we can change the way that we walk through life and deal with issues without fear, without being knocked out consciously. And I want that for all of us at this particular time, that there's so much to fear and so much to be concerned about and to feel hopeless about. I hope that we rise up out of that in that spirit that says, I did not give you the spirit of fear, but a spirit of love and of a sound mind. May we say mind. So join with me in just a moment of activation, meditation, contemplation, whatever Spirit has for us this morning. First of all, I want to take this time to enter into gratitude for my endocrine system. I recently had a test on my endocrine system through saliva and found that some of my areas of my system is a little sluggish. And how that can affect everything from being tired, my mood, being depressed. Because it's the leader of the rest of my body, it orchestrates so much through my body. So I want to recognize the endocrine system for the great purpose for which it was put in this tabernacle. The furniture that it represents in my house. May it return to its optimum level, and all of those that are listening to me now that are here, and those that are listening on streaming. May the Spirit activate all of the areas of your endocrine system. And now, because the pituitary gland is connected to our brow chakra, our third eye, I want you to focus right between your eyebrows, where the pituitary gland is. And now we ask for an activation of our pituitary gland. Bringing it to a level of vibration and frequency as it's never been, based upon the true pattern. The pituitary gland connects us to so many things that makes our body work in wholeness. And as it vibrates with the life of the Christ consciousness, may it connect itself to the pineal gland in the center of the brain. As they join together to build a new equilibrium in our minds, a new way of seeing, a new way of understanding, a new way of feeling, a new way of following our path toward the brilliance of this new day. The pituitary gland and its frequency is the place in which true balance and growth happen. It is the place that moves us out of the puberty of our adolescency and prepares us to be impregnated by higher dimensions of information given to the pineal gland. It is the place of awakenment. It is the place of the third eye, the eye of enlightenment. Just take in a deep breath, exhale. And maybe you feel the activity going on right between your eyebrows as we have focused our consciousness upon this area of our body. How many times have you thought about your pineal gland or thanked your pineal gland? Probably not often, if ever. This is a new thing to direct life and consciousness to that part of our tabernacle. And when you're ready, you may open your eyes and return back into the space. Okay. Well, a lot of reviewing. I think this needs to be reviewed before I keep going further and further out, because I think you understand it more that we go over it, and that we have more to work with in that way. Again, I want to thank you for your continuous support for the class. Appreciate it, and continue to support the class and HeartLight. And we will be back with you Sunday morning at 11:15 here in our Sunday morning service. All right, bless you is my sincere prayer. Have a great day. Have a great rest of the week. And we'll see all of you soon. Thank you.